Hello, and welcome to In the Light, Growing Your Soul with me, Anna Isabel. And my guest today is Janine Lowe, who has written a rather fascinating book called Feng Shui, Your Way to Abundance. Hello, Janine.
Hello, Anna. Looking forward to being interviewed by you.
Well, you're the first guest I've had um, able to talk about Feng Shui.
Oh,
So please tell us, what is it? Because it's one of these things we hear about, but we have a vague idea of what it's about, but not necessarily know what it is.
okay. So people have, as you say, different ways of thinking about Feng Shui. Some people call it Feng Shui or Feng Shui or whatever. I call it Feng Shui. So Feng Shui is an ancient Chinese method of bringing in positive energy through your house, through yourself, to make your dreams come true, really. So your house is made up of 9 different areas. And as a Feng Shui consult, if you have a Feng Shui consultation with me, can't say the word today, consultation with me, basically people ring me up and they say, I really want to make more money. I mean, I like the word abundance, yeah. And so I go in, and when you go into someone's house, and I don't know about yours or not, I say, don't tidy anything up. Okay, so I walk through the door and they're like, oh no, I'm really embarrassed. But they call you in for abundance. But often when I go into a house, wherever your clutter is, that's the part of your life area that is not working for you. So and there's 9 areas in your house. I'll just list them for you. Why not? So the relationship area, which is the southwest of your house, the west of your house, which is creativity. One of my favorite, which is the northwest, and that's helpful people and travel. The north is career. The northeast is knowledge and abundance. The east is ancestry, and the southeast is good fortune, and the south is fame. And also the center is health, but we always keep that really quiet. We don't do any activations in there. We just like to keep it nice and clean and all that sort of thing. So as a Feng Shui consultant, I go in, and it's a bit like Cluedo. You go in and people talk to you for an hour or so and you listen. But more than often, I can pinpoint in the area of their house where there's a problem. And the idea for me, as Feng Shui is to make sure the positive chi moves around that area, not fast, but in a really even area. And so you start to rebuild that area. So they may have to declutter it, they may have to put a water feature or an aquarium on or whatever to make sure that the energy starts to work for them. So when I say energy, have you ever been in a coffee shop and you're like, I don't want to stay in here? Yeah.
Oh, there are many places like that.
So that's bad feng shui.
Yeah.
So a good feng shui is when you walk into the local coffee shop and you're like, I want to stay here, meet my friends, I don't want to leave, I want to work here. And usually either they've had someone in or they're just intuitive about it. And it's just one of those places you want to be. So feng shui for me is bringing what you want in life, and also making sure what you don't want in your life isn't in there.
It's very interesting that you aligned directions with certain parts of life. And it's made me think about being an astrologer myself, the part that directions play also in the birth chart. And for instance, you were talking about fame being in the south, and in the classic interpretation of a chart, that would be exactly the area where you are most visible because the sun is high. So I thought that was very interesting that you're talking about that. So you go into a house and you're looking at these different directions in the house. Does that apply to rooms, specific rooms, or is it the house as a whole?
Okay, so you have different sorts of houses. You have square, rectangular, missing spaces. So ultimately, what you do is you find the center of the house, which is a very easy thing to do. And I call it walking the lines. You walk widthwise, breadthwise, cut it in half, walk into the middle, have your compass in your hand, and that's where you found your south, north, that. But some people live in a flat, or some people I've gone in and they have their office in a building. And so then we just work on that particular room. In the room, we find the center of that room and then we set the room up, the office for that. So when I go into work with big companies, I'll go into the CEO's office, set his office up, make sure in the building that he's got the best office for him, which is either in the northwest or the northeast of the building. And that means that he has all the positive energy and is in control. So it's very much like that. And it's interesting you said about I'm assuming Western astrology because I'm a Chinese astrologer by nature, and the south is the horse, which is the fame area. So all the animals sit in the house. So do you ever have a favorite place of facing? Do you have your TV in your favorite place to watch, or?
Um, yes, I mean, there's obviously a room where I spend a great deal of time besides the kitchen.
Which is the heart of the house, by the way.
Of
You
course.
having your kitchen. There's three areas you should always get right. Firstly, the kitchen because it's the heart and health of the house. Yeah, and then the bedroom because obviously good sleep. And the other way is because nowadays we all work from home. Well, a lot of people do. Office is very important to have. So one of the things that you might do intuitively without even knowing it, when you feel relaxed, you face an area that really suits you and you feel calm and it's what you want to do, whether you're meditating or whatever. So in Feng Shui, one of my jobs to do is to find the exact area for each person so that they can feel contained. And you'd think that everybody would know that that was the way. But sometimes I've been to houses where people just don't. And but as soon as I set the house up and put them in the right positions and have everything, then everything seems to fall into place like a jigsaw.
Yeah, it's interesting because I hadn't thought of that. The sometimes rooms lend themselves to be organized in a particular way, and my room is north. Sorry, it's the house is east-west facing, and it's double fronted. So I have marvelous windows to the east and the west. But I realized actually the way we've orientated it is towards the chimney, the fireplace,
All right.
which of course is south. And so, and it just, I can't actually imagine orienting this sofa in any other direction. It's the most natural
Yeah.
for us, but it does happen to be facing south.
Well, also going back to Chinese astrology, depending what animal you are, it also helps which area you face. Now, interesting enough, you say you've got east-west orientation, which is ancestry and creativity. So that's really quite an important part to your house. Do you know what direction your front door is? Because that's actually quite important.
East.
Okay, so ancestry. So do you feel quite attached to your family from the
Hmm.
past?
Well, there is definitely a link between the house and ancestry. Yes, there is. Yeah. So yes, um, it's yeah, all of these things that we look at in detail, they all have such importance, don't they?
Yeah, people, I can go into someone's house and do my feng shui or teach them, like my students and everything. Um, and they're like, oh, it's just like magic. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, it is. But it's because you don't realize how to bring you out. So when you're bringing it out in them, they're like, oh, this just feels normal. But, let's say manifesting, feng shui, it's all in all of us, intuitiveness. But whether we choose to go down that road is another thing. But in obviously in 2020 I couldn't like travel, So I had to go online, which was a new thing for me because I love going into the buildings. I love picking up the essence. The house has its own energy. It's living and breathing. So that was a massive change for me. So that's why I ended up writing Feng Shui Your Way to Abundance, because the book, I could write it in a practical way. And so I wrote it as if I was feng shuiing my very own house, because I'm not a born author. I've learned how to write, but it was like, so how I've written it in the book is exactly how you can feng shui your own house. And it's very simple and very easy to do. There's no mystic behind feng shui. It's about making sure that energy is working for you.
It's flowing. And so just coming back to the title where you're talking about, abundance, and you actually use the word manifestation as well. I think it might be good to clarify what you mean by abundance.
Okay, so I use the word abundance because a lot of people a while ago used to just ask for wealth. They thought that money could buy everything. My thoughts are that money can't buy everything. So abundance for me is joy, happiness, good health, family, friends, all that sort of thing. I class as abundance. So I think that's really important to get aligned with all of it. I mean, yes, we want money because money buys us what we want, but money, as they always say, doesn't always bring happiness. So for me, when I was deciding what to call the book or what to do, I did it in a way that you can bring in all the different abundances. I'm sure there's not a word called abundances, but there is now.
Well, I mean, um, I think inherent in the word is a plural. The abundance means much of,
Yeah.
and and so that's why I wanted to clarify what you were meaning when you were talking about abundance, because when people talk about manifestation, very often it's a very specific thing they're looking for, which is all around what they want. And it's all around a material want. And here, what you're saying is yes, but this is one part and one part only of what we need to feel happy and fulfilled. And to live an abundant life is to live a life of fulfillment. And I think that that is a very important thing. So, surprisingly for me, when I was looking at your book and reading it, you actually have a chapter for the garden. And so it would be a good thing for you to explain what part the garden plays in the quest, if we can call it that, for abundance.
So in the house is internal chi. Out in the garden, it's external chi, which is much more powerful. Using nature in Feng Shui is a much more powerful thing. When people have houses and they don't open windows and don't open doors, I always say to my clients, and I'm saying it now, always open them, even if it's for a minute or two, open the doors, let the chi in, let the good energy in. But what I love about the garden of Feng Shui is simplistically what I've done in the house, all the different areas, I've focused them into the garden. And so where you would have abundance in the garden would be in the northeast. But I'm not a gardener, although I love gardening. I had to learn about flowers. Yeah. Um, so I had to learn what flowers grew in the dark, what flowers grew in the light, what sort of flowers there were. I mean, I have a certain amount of knowledge on that. And then I wrote it, making sure that you could put the right flowers in the right area and that they brought in the right positive chi. Also, in the garden, it's really good to have wavy paths. these people that have absolutely straight paths, it's just like the chi is just going straight down. And the idea of chi is to meander, so the energy is slow and brings all the right things. Also, another good thing to have in the garden is a bird bath. So I focus quite a lot on the bird bath, but I have a lot of rescue cats. I take in street cats. So just so you know, I have a pond, but it has a big like wire over them. I can't trust, it's not really fair on them, and it's not fair on the fish. But if you haven't got, if you have the opportunity to have a bird bath, it's actually really, really auspicious to have one in the southeast. But I go into that in the book, why you should have it. Also about how you use, a lot of people like to use wind chimes and things like that outside. And another really good thing out in the garden is a mirror, which may sound a bit weird to anyone, but basically if you place a mirror in the either facing the northeast or facing the southeast, you're amplifying your wealth. If you're facing the northeast, you're amplifying your abundance. But if you faces the southeast, you're amplifying your good fortune. And now you're going to ask me what's good fortune, aren't you? So good fortune is like those cookies when you open them. They're the little surprises that you want in life that you didn't even know you wanted. So for me, good fortune is slightly about abundance, but more of the universe gives it to you without you asking for it. That's my thought on good fortune.
I like that. I think the mirror surprised me because I would generally avoid mirrors because of birds flying into them. But I think that we can work around that and make them smaller or
Oh yeah, I mean, make them smaller, have them with overgrowth over them, so that they reflect. So that I mean, often the birds just sit on the branches. 100%, you can't just put a mirror. It's like people have these glass doors and they don't put stickers on them. Even humans walk straight into those, don't they? So yeah, I totally get what you're saying with that, but. Yeah, and also I touch on having low undergrowth and high undergrowth for different reasons. I loved writing that chapter, I'll be honest with you, because it was something I had never thought about. And, I did a lot of research into it. Even if I've made it simple, I had to learn it and then make it simple. Because if you ever talk to a gardener, they're a little bit more into.
yes. Um, so I think this is very interesting because you are saying basically that in order to live abundantly, we also need to be working with nature. And I think that's very important. However, one of the things that you said about, the importance of opening windows and letting the air in, we have a lot of offices that windows can't be opened. So for people who are working in an office, 8, sometimes longer hours than that, very often longer hours than that, and it is completely closed in, what would you recommend?
That's a very interesting question. I suppose I hadn't really thought about that. I'm only thinking of when you go home. Yeah. So I think, for me, many years ago when I did work in an office, I used to take my cup of tea outside and my coffee outside, and at lunchtimes I was outside. With all the restrictions that there are now and all the safety, I totally get where you're coming from. Some of it is a bit ridiculous, but obviously, we have to go
What
along with what they do.
would you recommend that they have something on the desk that actually helps to move air, like a fan or something like that, like a small, you get these small fans. Would that be helpful, or would you maybe have something that symbolizes nature on the desk or something? Are these
I,
there still things that people can
Yeah, I understand. Symbolizing nature, you could, I mean, a picture of you in nature or something like that. Fans are okay, but they move the energy around on your table far too quick. If you work for a good enough company and they have enough air going around, it is a massive thing. that you can use. But when I feng shui buildings, I have to be honest, I make sure when we're sorting out the restrooms and everything that they have an exit door so that they can go out with their coffee and their tea and sit outside. Um, I think it's a very important thing, you know, at the end of your workday. Some of us just get in travel and travel back, but is to spend some time, if you can, outside. And I also realise that a lot of people, a certain amount of people, don't actually have the facility for a garden if they're in a block of flats, but they may be able to have like a windowsill where they can put their herbs and all that sort of thing. And I really do suggest that's a really good idea. So if you haven't even got that, then it is about getting outside, getting in the parks, getting near the streams. If you can't do it daily, at the weekend, getting close to nature, there's nothing like it.
Well, yes, I was going to ask you about, people who haven't got a garden, and you were talking about things along those lines then, the windowsill, with the herbs, etc. And that made me then think about houseplants. Do houseplants play a part in this? And if so, what part and
Okay, well, there
what?
are certain plants that go in certain areas, and it is covered in the book. But a very good plant is the jade plant for the good fortune or the abundance area. And they love being inside. They grow like mad. If you go to a Chinese restaurant or anything, you always see them by the till going absolutely mad on it. I believe in rounded plants in different areas. I don't like personally cacti. I find that they give off Sheng Chi, which is bad Chi. Anything with sharp edges in Feng Shui generally isn't a good thing. If you have an outside and you've got your house is not secure enough, then yes, I believe in having pointed flowers, the big cacti outside to protect you inside. But in the house, the whole idea is just to keep up this lovely flow. Whereas if you had, as you can imagine, with a round rubber plant or various other cheese plants, things like that, they're lovely and they let the chi through. The cheese plants do, and that sort of thing. But the spiky plants say it all, really. They're spiky.
Well, I was actually thinking about aloe vera as you were speaking because that falls into the category of a little bit spiky, but it's an incredibly important medicinal plant, and many people do grow it indoors. So I would want to make an allowance for that. Where would you put it?
Right. So if you were going to put it, I'd put it in the south.
Okay,
Just
lovely.
so you know. So you can put it in the south, and I do get what you're saying with that. But the south, as is in fame and as in fire, it can hold the energy because it's so strong itself. So the south is fine for that sort of thing, for sure.
Perfect. Well, you are a mine of information, and I guess maybe the next thing I would ask is what can go wrong?
What can go wrong with feng shui?
Yes. Well, maybe not feng shui, but where might we go wrong?
Right. Well, if you follow my book, you're never going to go wrong. But I think what happens with people generally in houses is that with your wardrobe. Let's just start with the wardrobe. Yeah. You over clutter it. You have your winter stuff, you have your summer stuff, you have your jogging stuff, etc., etc. And then what happens in the morning? You get up and you're like, oh, I don't know what to wear. I don't know what to wear. And you put the same clothes on as you put on every time. So for me, one of the biggest faults and where I would start with is your wardrobe. I know it sounds really weird because you could say many things, but let's start with your wardrobe. Make sure that you have your seasonal clothes only out, and make sure some people have two-size wardrobes for obvious reasons. They don't want to let go of that, but want to move forward with the fact they've lost weight. My answer to that is stay lost weight and let go of the winter the other clothes, because then you'll think, oh, I can put that on. But if you've not got them there, then you're going to be fine. The other thing that people make a really big mistake about is the entrance to your which is called the mouth of the chi. Yeah, they have tatty front doors with the mantles not working, the locks are stuck, the doors creak. So when the chi enters the house, if it can get in, and there isn't like a mound of shoes and coats and everything there, if there is, you are bringing stagnant energy, or it's not getting past that to come into the house. And the idea is that you need to bring new chi in and new chi. So the first thing I would always say, make sure that your front door is clear and clean, the actual door itself. Often you see people with two bay trees, one either side of the door. That's a Chinese, it's just what would you call it? A sign, auspicious sign to do. Make sure if you have letterboxes, if people do have letterboxes, we tend to have things outside nowadays. All of that's all shiny. If you open the door, there's nothing in the hallway. I know you can have a table where you throw your car keys and your change or whatever, your credit cards. That's okay, but make sure that the door opens properly. And when it opens, make sure there's a mirror on the way the door opens. And the idea is that when the chi, the energy comes into the house, then it bounces off the mirror and then goes all the way around the house, up the stairs, that sort of thing. So that's a mistake people make. Obviously, clutter I've talked about. That's a big thing people make a mistake. Everybody's got that drawer in the kitchen where you just chuck everything in. Don't have it. You don't need 30 batteries or the keys that change the door, or the neighbour's keys you had who you don't have anymore and they've moved. You know what I mean? It's so simple. And the other thing is, people have this idea that they have to spend ages doing ages decluttering, and I always say 15 minutes max. Just 15 minutes. Just go. When you start to do it, you have such good feeling, you keep going, yeah. But if you just allocate 15 minutes, put your music on, bit of Pink, Mozart, whatever you think your music is, or a podcast or whatever. I'm a great podcast listener too. So, and then just do it for 15 minutes, and the feeling is good, and the energy is so different. It is amazing.
It's interesting because you talk about the importance of letting energy in, which works on the assumption that the energy that you're getting in is always positive. But I would think that there are certain places where the energy might not be so good. So, for instance, it might be that the air is polluted, but it might also be that you live in an area that's got very low frequency because there's a lot of unhappiness or aggression, or do you see what I mean? If you're living in an inner city, the energy in inner cities is much heavier than in other places. So how do we square that with this idea that chi coming in is always a good thing?
Okay, so I personally wouldn't live somewhere like that. Okay,
A lot of people do. So
but what I was going to say is, obviously you're mixing it up here, so I will answer your question. The idea is that energy that comes in should be positive. Why would you open your door or the window if there was a house or a what was it? What do you call them? The utility place where all the dustbins go. You wouldn't do that because that isn't what you're wanting to bring in. But on a general basis, you've got to open your front door. So you're going to bring chi in, yeah? If you think you're bringing bad chi in, then you just have to clean it up. And the way you clean it up is to space clear with sage. So you've brought energy in that you're saying is negative, but you want to make it positive. That's what I would do. I'd clean it up. You cannot live in a place where there's no energy coming in and you're not opening your windows and doors. So there is always ways to do it. If you live in a block of flats, obviously you're opening onto a corridor. but you will have windows. So you're saying, oh, we could be bringing in pollution, but then one would think that you would have things up in your windows so the pollution wouldn't come in. So there is ways around it, but you can't just stay in a. For example, right, this is how bad she would feel to you. You were sitting in a corner, right, and everyone kept throwing their coats on you. Yeah. So you're slowly dying under these coats, aren't you? Because you're like this, yeah. But as soon as you lift off the coats, whether they've been in bad shape or not, you're like, oh God, I can breathe again now. So the idea is you're meant to be getting that good feeling, however you do it, whether you sage it or you ring bells or any sort of noise. That is what you do. That's what Feng Shui is about. It's about making sure that you live in a very happy environment. And remember, the other thing is, you could open the door, good chi, yeah, but the person coming through the door has had a bad day, and they're like, oh, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened. And so the whole house or where they're standing, and you were in a really good mood, remember, and they just dumped it on you, yeah, and you're like, oh, how am I going to get back there? So, you can't always get the sage stick and sage them or anything. So my answer is I let them talk and then I just release it. As an empath, and as I said earlier, I do take in rescue cats. I'm not a mad cat lady. I do other animals as well. I find that animals are great releases for energy. They're very, I mean, a dog just loves you whatever you do. A cat, well, I don't know, maybe I do. But a dog, I have a dog, I have a cockapoo, and I can't do anything wrong. I walk out of the room for like a minute. I've been gone at least 10 years, but there's that pure love. Do you know what I mean? So I have a really good thing about animals. I have music in every room that I can turn on in something to bring the vibration up. So, yeah.
Yeah. And that's brilliant, because that's exactly what I was looking for from you, is because we do not live in an ideal world, and many people are kind of stuck in areas, living in areas that are not necessarily what they would choose. And I asked the question because they need help to change that energy as much as possible into something positive. And I totally get what you say about animals, and living with a cockapoo myself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, there is that. So essentially, what we are looking at here is a wonderful ancient system which helps us to be in as positive a frame of mind as possible, and to help energy flow so that we can have the highest vibration within ourselves possible. And what you have described there are ways in which we can help ourselves when things are less than ideal, including when either we or somebody else walks in having had a very bad day of it,
Yeah.
and still being able to support, but also release that energy so that we are not brought down by it. Well, Janine, as I said before, you're a mine of information, and just a reminder to everyone that the book we are discussing is Feng Shui, Your Way to Abundance. I'll be putting a link to that in the description box. And if people want to contact you, how do they do that?
So it's www.janinelowe.co.uk. Actually, if you just put Janine Lowe Feng Shui in, I seem to be on lots of pages at the moment because I'm very much into manifesting, which is what I'm doing a lot. I have touched on manifesting in the Feng Shui book and mindset and everything, so I think it needs everything together. But you'll find me.
Fantastic. I'll be putting a link to your website and the book in the description box in any case. So thank you once again for your time today.
Thank you, Anna. I always enjoyed speaking to you.
Thank you. And thank you all for watching. A reminder that I do have a Substack and also websites, which you will find in the description box. And in the meantime, or until next time, I wish you a lovely week. speaking of next time, we're going to be looking at stone structures of Ireland. Until then, goodbye.